Alright, tell me if this has ever been you. Inspiration struck, your writing desk was clean, so you just go for it. Flow state. You bust out that entire chapter, the song just came to you, you put down the final brushstroke on the last chrysanthemum, and you step back and you look, you exhale, and you just go, fuck, it's so ugly. That's the best. I mean, it's not the best in the moment. It makes you want to really, pull your fingernails out one by one for making something so horrible. Hear me out. It's really good for you. It's really good for your work. And before I wax poetic about how great your ugly art is, it's important to know that there are sort of two lenses to talk about artistic imperfection through. If you're a creator, like an internet creator or similar, and you're trying to address your artistic imperfections in a fast-paced production environment, you're following trends, you're tracking analytics, I'm not talking about that today. I'm speaking to the folks who are more artists in the basic traditional sense. That's generally who I'm talking to. People who have committed to a life in the arts, who are trying to learn about themselves through the act of creation. Like people who are going to get hot glue scars on their hands, whether or not a camera's pointed at them. And that's certainly not a value judgment either. I myself have done my fair share of self-promotion with the algorithm. I've done the instant coffee partnerships. So I'll talk about the product another time. Right now, I want to talk about your stupid, ugly art. I think it's spiritually like being a child disgusted by spinach. It's just so good for you to deeply scrutinize your work. Sharp self-critique accomplishes two things at the same time. It keeps your ego in check, and it shows you exactly what you need to do to improve. Every time you look at something you made and you go, that's fucking awesome, I've got no notes, you dig yourself deeper into a pigeonhole of your own making. Suddenly, there's no reason to pivot and experiment and push yourself into being a more well-rounded artist. You're closing the door between yourself and enhancement, or yourself and a brand new skill. I play flamenco and classical guitar, but it's not like I popped into the world knowing how to. I started with cowboy chords. I started on the same kind of Chinese, half-plastic, steel string piece of crap guitar that everybody else starts with. But my growth as an instrumentalist has been propelled by, every time I pick up my instrument, me saying, I'm not good enough yet. And before I get too deep here, I do want to say, you need to be kind to yourself. You need to protect your emotional well-being. As an artist, you need to be careful with your mental and your physical health. This is a marathon and not a sprint. Also, hold yourself accountable and get better. This is a marathon. Here's what's great, and this is why I'm not talking about social media-centric creation under the iron fist of capitalism. I'm talking about a life in the arts, because this is not about this one project. I don't mean to sound too spiritual about it, but your life is the project. This piece of ugly art is just one of hundreds on the yardstick of your artistic life. It is such a gift to be able to look back and say, oh, that's what I did when I was 18, and this is why that thing was successful when I was 25. And before you know it, you're saying, thank God for the ugliness of my 20s, because I never would be where I am now at 40. And then one day you're 65, and you look back at that 18-year-old piece and you say, I can't believe I thought that was ugly. But look at everything that I learned about myself. A silver lining here is that the more you hold yourself accountable for the quality of your work, the more the gap closes. Those little fingerprints that you leave all over your pieces get smaller and smaller and smaller. So I was recently the art director for a few art installations that were the product of a partnership between a museum and a nonprofit that I work for, and I also had to cut and hang a lot of materials myself. Going back to what I said before about preparation, this really drew on my background in theater and set design and construction and etc. It all builds. And I was just losing it over measurement discrepancies in the realm of 1/32 of an inch. And it was crucial for the quality of my work that I fixated on those imperfections so that the outside observer doesn't catch them at all. Over the years, that fixation on the ugly bits of your processes, it really pays off because eventually your audience sees your work as seamless, which is funny because the seams are always so fucking obvious anyway. I've been called a perfectionist a lot. Called a perfectionist a lot. Like derogatorily. Like usually as a critique, suggesting that I'm too fixated on shit that doesn't matter, or my standards are too high, but like, why wouldn't they be? How would it serve me to lower my standards? Maybe on the mental health front. But if I just hate myself a little more, the work will finally be beautiful. Listen, the self-hatred saves you a little bit. It's like a shield. Someone will cast judgment at something that I've made, and look, we are always going to be a little bit afraid of that external critique, but it's so freeing to just say, oh, you think my work is bad? You can't fucking fathom how much I hate it. I think you've got to be really brave to live an artistic life, because you are going to make a lot of ugly stuff. You are going to make a lot of things that do not look how they looked in your mind. The dialogue you write is going to be clunky and inorganic. The love song you wrote is cringe. Sorry. Artists have this brutal Sisyphean task on their plates, where they have to reach within and expose a piece of themselves to the world and say, look, I followed my basest impulses and I created this painting or this song, this completely transparent microcosm of who I am. And by the way, it's revolting to actually look at yourself. It's hard. That's why people quit. But on a longer timeline, the merits of having your fingerprints all over something that you've made becomes so much more clear. That love song you wrote that feels cringy and naive, in even just 5 years, is going to feel earnest and pure. That thing that you made will age with you, and your relationship to it will evolve. Like, it makes me think of Neil Young live at Massey Hall in 1971. I adore that album. It's raw, it's human, it's a little bit ugly, and it's just him, solo. So he's 25, he plays the song Old Man, and he hasn't even recorded the studio version of it yet for Harvest, but it's this thoughtful, simple, poignant song about this caretaker that lives on his ranch. And now, Neil Young is still out there performing. He's 79. He's the old man. Like, the song didn't change, but the meaning did. I love Neil. And a huge reason is because a lot of that work was a little bit ugly. And so his songs from the late 60s and the 70s, they've evolved a lot in the last 50 years. My first album from my band Dear Samson is about to be 5 years old. And I think it's good. I think it's rough. My first love song is on there. And I think it's good. I think it's a little juvenile. My lyricism and musicianship have both gotten a lot better since then. But also, when I'm 70, if I go back to that first love song, there's probably going to be something else to it. Suddenly, it's going to have that layer of poignancy. When I listen back to my older music, I have my notes. But the things I'm critical about now in my own work, while they do guide the areas I want to improve upon, they are also the very same elements that give a song of value to me in retrospect that I never could have written for. Like, fuck. Those are what my fingerprints looked like when I was 20. That's why you can't let the ugliness stop you from bringing something to the finish line. Finish the piece, learn from it, use it to chart your growth, and look, there's no need to dwell on it that much when you're playing the long game. You don't have time to worry about how shitty your art is, you have to get to the next one. And then you do the next one and you're like, oh, that was bad too? Good thing I now have 2 projects to learn from so I can knock the third one out of the park. And you will knock it out of the park. But to do that, the ugly stuff has to happen. And when you look back on the catalog of your life, you probably will find a lot more beauty in it anyway. Or at least somebody else will. My great aunt recently passed away, and among many wonderful things, she was a talented painter, and we have a lot of her work. My mom will say to me, oh, she hated this, she was critical of that. But I'll tell you one thing. Thank God it exists.